I'm Kyle. I started iFixit a little while ago. We are on a crusade to make sure everything in the world is fixable. So far, it has kind of been a rearguard action as companies glue more and more things together. I yell and scream about it, and in increasing number of cases, we're actually convincing companies to change their mind. And so what we're gonna do today is talk to you. We're gonna walk through a little bit of the history of the right to repair movement, things we've been getting done in terms of legislation, up to and including a new right to repair bill that the governor of Oregon signed last week for electric wheelchairs. Oregon's not the only one though. The big, well, I'm gonna spoil it. We've had a lot of success this year, so we'll take you through everything. Is your mic? The mute button? Is it dead? We totally can. This is a Shure SLX2. Oh, SM50. This is the wireless version of the SM58. All right, well, we can pass it back and forth. So just introductions real fast. I'm Kyle. I started iFixit, and I am a software engineer by training, but have gotten sucked into the world of hardware because it's just too interesting to ignore. And Matt.
I work for Kyle. I work at iFixit managing our partnerships, our manufacturer relationships. But before iFixit, I had my own repair business. And we have a deck, but we're not going to feel confined to it. We want to try to make this engaging and interactive, so we'll jump in and out of the deck. We may not get through all of it. If you're really interested in what we prepared, come find us afterwards. We'll share it with you. And these QR codes, connect with us on LinkedIn. We're always happy to chat. Just to get us off, show of hands, how many people know about iFixit already? Cool. We don't have to spend a whole lot of time here.
I mean, I guess the one thing I would say, so iFixit's mission is to enable everybody to fix their stuff. For a long time when we were starting, you know, you have your idea and you want to be super secretive. You're like, someone will steal my idea. As I am 20 years into this, I've realized that what we do is total lunacy. And if we stop doing what iFixit does, I don't know if anyone else would pick it up. So it's very important that we continue to find a way to thrive and survive. We do all kinds of interesting partnerships. Are there any of the Playdate folks here? I know they're here in Portland. So we worked with them on this design. The warranty voided remove stickers suck. Not only do they suck, they're actually totally illegal. The FTC has set up a website, reportfraud.ftc.gov, and they have invited you to take pictures of warranty voided remove stickers, and like this one. This is off of a PlayStation. And upload them to the fraud site. So please do. There is a little-known law. The Magnuson-Moss Warranty Act of 1976 says it's illegal in the United States for a manufacturer to void a warranty if you disassemble it. If you disassemble it and cause damage, go back to the previous one. So if you are a hardware designer and you do want to put a sticker on it, this is the correct way to phrase it, which is that if you open it up and damage something, the damage that you cause is not covered under the warranty. The rest of the device is still under warranty. And I think we're preaching to the choir here. I've seen I void warranties shirts wandering around. Awesome. Love it. That's our crowd. But if you were to go and ask a random person in the mall, hey, do you think if you open your iPhone it will void the warranty? Of course they're going to say yes. And we live in a society where by and large, unless you're in Portland, most people follow laws. And so, like, this just, like, intrinsic rule that's in people's head of, like, you can't open your things. I do, you know, science things for kids, and I'll hand them a phone or an iPod and say, hey, do you want to take this apart? And a 5-year-old kid will look at me like I'm insane because every adult their entire life has been telling them, don't take that thing apart. So that needs to stop, right? And it needs to stop with getting screwdrivers out there. So, you know, we got to start selling screwdrivers. We sell the iPhone screwdriver, this 5-point pentalobe screen. Every iPhone has a big fuck you on the bottom of it, right? With this 5-point screw that doesn't exist anywhere, saying you can't open your thing, you don't really own anything. This is a differentiation between the consumer class and everybody else, what Tim Cook calls the popular mechanics crowd. I guess I will wear that as a badge of honor, but I would like that to just be the default for everyone. And so that's been the crusade of iFixit, is how do we open up tinkering to everyone.
I'm going to let you keep going. But you know, iFixit was founded a little over 20 years ago. Kyle, the guy here, is one of the co-founders. The other co-founder is Luke. And I think it's the classic startup story. It was Cal Poly dorm. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep, and then graduated up to a garage, and then from a garage to a house, and then from a house to a warehouse, and now global. But iFixit has always been about kind of bringing repair to the world and teaching everyone to fix everything. We are a very culture-driven company. It's one that I've always admired. It really means a lot to work at a company that has a strong belief system and a strong mission. But hopefully if you're familiar with iFixit, you understand what we're trying to do. That's our mission. Kyle, what's the story on this
This
tractor?
is Daisy. Daisy's my bulldozer. So I have a challenge for all of you hardware designers who are going to make something and put it out in the world. Daisy was made in 1965. She's still running strong. I challenge you, whatever you design next, see if you can find a way for it to last 60 years. Right? It can be done. That's a very complex thing. It's got explosions inside it. Do any of your devices explode and continue to work? Right? Like, it's not trivial. This is my buddy Anna. She was the program manager on the original Apple Watch, which good for her. Great product, revolutionized the world. I don't think very many original Apple Watches still work. The previous presentation was on Casio watches. I think they probably did that job better than the Apple Watch did, right? Like a Casio will continue working for a decade or two, where an Apple Watch will not. So we have a problem in the electronics industry that by virtue of how complex supply chains are, how complex the products are, how brittle these things are, the fact that they have batteries, the software obsolete, like it just drives lifespans to where you're like, well, if it lasted for 2 years, that was pretty good. Well, my friends, that is a failure. 2 years is not long enough. 10 years may not be long enough. We need to make these things last longer. And that's what we're pushing for in the right to repair movement across the board, is how do we dramatically increase lifespans. People complain, 70% of consumers are intensely dissatisfied with the lifespan of their refrigerator. Well, why are refrigerators not lasting as long? Because the electronics industry infected them. Before all you electronics people came along, refrigerators lasted a long time. Now the capacitors bulge and fail, and then they throw away a whole refrigerator because the capacitor failed, right? We know how to solve this. This can be done better. So, let's be part of the solution rather than the cause, and that really has been the impetus for iFixit. We help about 100 million people a year fix things. 1 in 10 Oregonians used iFixit last year. Oregon, by the way, is the best state. There are other states, but this is the best one. You're welcome to stay. Yeah. Born and raised Oregonian here. We're in 12 languages. We do everything we can to democratize repair. Our COVID project was getting repair manuals for every piece of medical equipment, hospital equipment we could. We're now the largest database of hospital medical equipment in the world. Same thing for power tools. We have tens of thousands of schematics and diagrams for how to fix chainsaws and power drills and you name it. So pretty much anything and everything is the scope of iFixit. I tend to look at the world as, what are the obstacles to fixing things? Okay, people don't have a screwdriver. Cool, I'll make the screwdriver. So I'm always looking, what's the next obstacle to repair? And let's go knock down that obstacle, and then we'll find the next one.
Yeah, having a mission of teaching everyone to fix everything is a pretty big mission, especially when it's a global one. Ideally, we work with manufacturers for all across the board to make that happen. But I think from the time that iFixit started, that wasn't the case. I don't even think Apple would look at Kyle in the early days.
Yeah.
It's gotten a little bit better, but not by a lot. And so, what Kyle and Luke created is this community that's thriving online, where it's actually not iFixit staff that is creating the documentation. For the flagship products, the iPhone, the Galaxy, the Pixel, right, of course. But iFixit has hundreds of thousands of devices and guides that have largely been created by the community, and also by an EDU program where we train the future generation of technical writers to come in and contribute good technical documentation for these devices. And the cool thing is, it's not just for the new stuff. We're going back to devices that are decades old.
I've learned the hard way. People always ask me, hey, does iFixit have repair manuals for typewriters? And I used to just say, no, I've never seen one. And I stopped doing that because we do have repair manuals for typewriters and all kinds of things. There's a thriving Atari 2600 repair community, and they're actively, right? And there's different problems you have fixing an Atari 2600 now than you did 30 years ago. And that's okay. That makes it fun.
One of the questions I always get when we talk to partners is, okay, if you're giving away the content for free, then how are you guys an actual business? And if you've ever tried to fix anything that is not officially supported, you know that finding something that is a quality product is a pain in the ass. And so one of the things that iFixit also invests heavily in is ensuring that we get access to the quality parts that can be listed for sale globally. So we have a team in San Luis Obispo and California and Chattanooga, Tennessee, and in Stuttgart in Germany that all they do is focus on how do we get the best product possible up there on the website for sale so that people can buy a product once and know that when they go through the whole repair process, it's going to work. And they're not going to try to power it up and realize, oh, shit, I got to go and disassemble it all over again.
Yeah, so those of you here with gray hair will remember back in the 70s and 80s, electronics OEMs sold parts. It was available. There were TV repair shops in malls, right? We could fix things. And in the 90s, they all stopped for a wide variety of reasons. But now, if you go to any electronics OEM, they do not know how to run a parts supply chain. They have just forgotten that whoever did that left the company a long time ago. And so we are helping these companies spin up and start creating those supply chains all over again. And they are all finding that it is drastically harder than they thought it was going to be.
Does anybody in here own an iFixit toolkit already?
Pretty good market penetration. Sweet.
Awesome.
And you all do now because there's one in your bag. So you're set.
Yeah. One thing just that we've talked about a lot today, and just to remind everybody, this bottom part here, all of our tools have a lifetime guarantee. So as those products kind of break over time because you're using them as they're designed to be used, reach out to us, and it's kind of no hassle. It's literally one email, one response, and you get your replacement done. And you can buy the individual bits if you happen to lose them like I do all the time, and you don't have to worry about having to buy a whole new kit. This is brief, but generally, we've got to ship it. We got to get it all over the world. So the little kind of green flags here, this is where our the main distribution locations are. You can't really see it from the projector end, but there is another continent over there. Generally, anything in blue is a country that we support. And as the other slide mentioned, it's about 138 countries, maybe more. And the part that I work on is our manufacturer partnerships. So wherever possible, iFixit wants to work with manufacturers to do the right thing. These are some of the ones that have stepped up to recognize that this is a real problem and one that they alone cannot fix. And I think that is important, and we're excited and proud to help them in that.
We started by reverse engineering products and writing our own repair manuals. As more and more companies are sharing manuals, then we'll mirror the manuals on iFixit. Or the nice thing about iFixit being a wiki is everything has a path to get better. So the Atari 2600 manual written back in the early or late 70s, that doesn't talk about the kinds of things that you have to do to keep one working today, right? So that's okay. The manual's a wiki; it gets better over time. And that there is a kind of ownership transition of maintaining products over time. Initially, it's under warranty, it's on the manufacturer. Over time, eventually, it's going to shift to 100% be on the community, and we kind of help that transition path.
They're not always doing it out of the kindness of their hearts, though. Sometimes there's something pushing them to move faster and to do the right thing. And so, we want to take a little bit of time to talk about right to repair. Is everybody... Another show of hands. Who here is familiar with right to repair?
Wonderful. Awesome. Okay, so this is dispatches from the front line of the right to repair movement. We have been going head-to-head with some of the most powerful forces ever assembled. Our first bill that we were fighting for in New York State had $10 trillion of market cap registered to lobby against us. And we fought and fought and fought. We have been, this has been the journey of my lifetime. I started iFixit because I was trying to find a repair manual for my Apple iBook, and Apple's lawyers had sent DMCA takedowns to everyone that posted the manual online. So that was like the de facto start, is no companies sell parts, manuals are being censored from the internet, diagnostic software is proprietary to manufacturers, right? That's the default. That's the trend line. That's the path of closed hardware that is, seemingly inevitable. Right to Repair is saying, hey, can we shift back to a more open ecosystem? And all that stands between us is a bunch of very well-paid, kind of dumb lobbyists on the other side.
As we'll explain in a minute, right to repair, and as you saw at the last slide, it's expanded globally. It's in a lot of different countries now. It's not quite everywhere, but even where it has not been introduced or passed into law yet, it is incredibly popular, and it is incredibly popular uniquely across the political spectrum. So whether you're a Republican, a Democrat, an independent, This legislation and this concept is an incredibly popular idea. And we're seeing more and more states and more countries introduce it because citizens are recognizing that it is a problem and one that needs to be addressed.
And I would say, importantly for this group, the open source movement does not have nearly these kind of levels of public support. And that's because it's a nerd movement with nerd discussion topics. Why do you care about open source? The reasons that we would advocate for that, or open hardware, are not generally easily articulable to the normal, regular folks. We started Right to Repair with the simple message, hey, you own it, you ought to be able to fix it. And that resonates with everyone. Everyone can talk about something that they have that was broken. We talk with legislators that have no idea what source code is, and they understand instinctively that it is frustrating to have to only rely on Apple to get their stuff fixed. This is then a wedge issue that we hope that we can use to systematically open hardware across the board. Right to Repair, I think, is the first battleground of the open source, open hardware movement in the public sphere. So,
I think this map is accurate. It was accurate 2 weeks ago.
Yeah. I think a lot's changed in the last 2 weeks, though.
Yeah.
We have successfully, and we're going to talk global, but we're going to start talking about the U.S. So we have introduced bills in all 50 states. It's a complex, okay, first of all, why are we doing state-by-state legislation? Why not just try to go national and pass something in Congress? When's the last time Congress passed anything? Right? Very little gets done federally, where actually at the state level, lots of legislation gets done all the time. So there's just a better window of opportunity. Also, when we're going up against very powerful entrenched interests, they tend to be even more powerful and entrenched in DC, where if they're spread out across the different states, we can also divide and conquer. They don't necessarily know where we're going. So we ran bills in 33 states this year. Our goal was not to pass bills in 33 states. It was to pass bills in like 5, but they didn't know which 5. So they have to fight us in all 33, and we can concentrate.
And 33 states, it's 77 different bills that we've had introduced. And they cover a variety of different categories, from consumer electronics to farm equipment to, in Oregon this year, was powered wheelchairs. Was that the same with Washington? Right?
Washington,
Yeah.
We did a full-blown electronics right to repair bill, including focusing on parts pairing. So you say, well, why are we passing right to repair for different industries? Why are we talking about electric wheelchairs, electronics, smartphones in some states? At a principled level, or if you write the law, it should just be, hey, if you sell a thing, make parts, tools, and information available, end of story. The problem is that we have opposition that we're fighting. So, we don't think it is possible for us to beat both Apple and Ford and GM in the same legislative session. And so we'll split it up and we'll do electronics in one state 1 year and auto somewhere else another year. And so that way we can divide and conquer a little bit. The battle in Oregon, well, the battle of the first bill that we passed was in New York, 3 years ago? Mm-hmm. That was really the first chink in the dam where we passed. It was a relatively weak bill, covered broad consumer electronics. It said you have to make parts, tools, and information available, but only for products that have not been made yet. It was a forward-looking bill, which wasn't really the right to repair the stuff that you have. It was like the right to repair the stuff that you're going to buy next. But it was the chink in the dam. Soon after we passed New York, we passed other states that were retroactive. We got it done in Minnesota and Colorado and Oregon. And then this year we passed a full-blown bill in Washington State. Once we got that initial, we got relatively weak bill, then we got bills passed that covered retroactive devices, meaning the thing that's already in your pocket. Then we started shifting and saying, okay, what is the fight of the next decade? And that really is parts pairing. Can anybody describe the parts pairing regime? What do you got? Okay, hold on. I'm going to hand you we have a device repair tech. Tell us about parts pairing and why it makes your life suck.
Essentially, it means that if I want to do a phone repair with an actual Apple OEM screen, not only do I have to make sure that the part comes directly from Apple and isn't a used part that's already paired to an iPhone, but I have to actually run specific Apple diagnostic software that talks to their servers to make sure that the old part is no longer registered to the phone and the new one is. Otherwise, things like True Tone on your iPhone just don't work. And then Apple tells you that the display is not genuine. It is very frustrating.
Very good explanation. Yes, so, I mean, It is so frustrating. You step back and just take this from a hardware perspective. You have a screen, it's got a microcontroller. You've got a main board that's got a microcontroller. Do all of you feel like you could probably make it so that the serial number on one microcontroller would only talk to a list of serial numbers on another microcontroller, right? This feels like a pretty trivial thing to build. And unfortunately, this is the problem of the modern world. Is like there's so much that we can do with software, including lock people out of their own stuff, that the manufacturer's like, well, that seems like something straightforward to do. Why not require cloud authentication in order to install a new screen? And so they do it. So now, because all of these terrible consumer hostile things are possible, we have to go and pass laws banning them. And so that's what we did in Oregon. The law says, hey, you can't do parts pairing that restrict repairs without making the tooling available to consumers broadly. And Apple had a whole sophisticated parts pairing regime that they're now having to walk back. Unfortunately, they're not doing it completely retroactively, so I think, is it the 15s and forward that you can fix easily? There's like a dark period of the iPhone 10 through the 15 that are going to be harder to fix, and then the 15 onwards will be easier to repair.
Yeah, this graph kind of shows you how Apple implemented that over time. I think we cut it off on the iPhone 12, but as Kyle said, I think there is definitely a change. As you mentioned, True Tone is a major issue. I had this issue. I have my iPhone. I replaced my battery, and Apple, for the longest time, would put this annoying little like check engine light up on your phone, where every time you opened your phone up, you'd see that one little red alert. If you have an iPhone, you'd know that, and you go in and it would warn you every single day, nope, this is not a valid battery. And it would remind you that it was a less than equal part to what they would otherwise put in. And it's not the case at all.
Yeah.
And so they've started to roll that back, but I mean, I could mirror my iPhone. I could show you. I still have the warning on my phone that says my iFixit battery is not sufficient, according to Apple.
So this is not just the iPhone. Apple didn't even invent parts pairing. There's another notable device that has an optical drive paired to the main board. And I'm going to go to the expert here. How hard is it to break the encryption between the optical drive and the main board on an Xbox?
On an Xbox? Yeah, that's.
Or like, how about on Xbox One?
On Xbox One, that was very. Yeah, we broke that one. But the Xbox 360 got a lot more difficult. People had to get more sophisticated to.
And how about the new one?
I haven't looked at the new ones myself. Yeah, just haven't had the time. But
Yeah. So, and why did they put the lock on?
for the original Xbox,
Why is the lock between the optical drive?
I mean, there's a whole bunch of reasons. Most of it's to DRM the games, right, to make sure you can't run copy games at the end of the day. But then they also do want to prevent people from Frankensteining boxes and repairing things and that sort of stuff.
So the side result of Microsoft's anti-piracy strategy on the Xbox is that if you want to repair an optical drive with a failed, servo motor or whatever in the optical drive, it's just like, well, also replace the main board. At which point, the repair is so expensive, you might as well get a new Xbox. And you look at how many millions of those things are made, like it being totally locked down is really untenable. So. Parts pairing is insidious. We've seen it in all kinds of things. I found a paired part in a Husqvarna chainsaw. I was talking with a local independent repair shop last week, and I guess Mercedes is doing parts pairing on their headlights. And
Tesla does it.
Tesla's doing this.
Tesla does it, yeah.
The Mercedes software, they have different levels of software. There's like the extreme software that requires authentication if you're a locksmith. Now, in order to change a headlight assembly, you have to be locksmith certified. So, our good friend Corey likes to say, if someone else puts a lock on the thing you own and doesn't give you the key, it's not for your benefit. Well, we're living in a world with all kinds of locks, right? So, there's two paths. One is we systematically break things open. Please do that. The other path is we pass laws to kind of ban locks, and that's really what we're focusing on. And yeah, here's a world of different things we've found.
John Deere has been notorious for this issue. Yeah.
Yeah. But we got Doom running on a tractor last year at DEF CON.
So the laws are catching up. As Kyle mentioned, the earliest right to repair legislation did not address parts pairing. We modified that starting last year to kind of go in and clean that up, and we'll continue to do that. And the newest pieces of legislation do have provisions that ban it. But I think ideally, right, we don't want legislation to have to force these manufacturers to do the right thing. And so one of the things that we've been pitching and pushing really hard to those manufacturer partners that I listed before, and to anybody else, is that you really are going to have to comply with this no matter what. It's kind of the floor, because now these laws are passing in the United States, in the EU, in Canada. What's going to be a differentiator is what that experience looks like. And so we're asking manufacturers to really focus on what is the consumer experience when they need to repair their device, because everything will eventually break, and we're inviting them to create a kick-ass repair experience. But I think just to briefly discuss this, kind of why we should bother, as Kyle alluded to in the beginning about the tractor, like we're making too much stuff and none of it lasts. There's so many things that you can go next door and at the toy store and buy, and I guarantee you it will fail in probably the next 6 months.
I don't want to live in a world that looks like Wall-E, surrounded by lots of stuff. I would rather have fewer things that we value that stand the test of time. And I think the Casio watch is a good example of, like, that's an electronic product that is straightforward, simple, durable, that does stand the test of time. We need more products like that. You know, what are you going to pass on to your kids? A Swiss watch gains value over time, and most smartwatches did not.
And so Kyle and I went 2 weeks ago now, or maybe last week. Time flies. When did we go to Google? We went, 2 weeks ago, and we talked to the engineers at Google, and we showed them this slide, and this was like the quiet in the room, like you could drop a pin, and we're talking to all of the engineers who design the Pixel hardware, right? And what we're basically saying is you guys do a really good job of designing, of creating these products that people enjoy using, but none of it is going to last. Your legacy will not be able to be passed down to generations, and that is what we are challenging you to build. Why design for repair? I think there's often a question about, I think Apple has pitched this, that longevity is more important than repairability. And it is true that longevity is an important consideration. Ideally, you don't have a device that needs to be repaired sooner than another device. But I don't think that the two are mutually exclusive. I think the two can coexist, and they should. And so, one of the things that we like to point to are some examples of some manufacturers who did not think about repairability and how it came back to bite them in the ass. Does anybody know, just off of these three, what the issue was, if you, for one of them? Glue. The iPhone battery, yeah? Anybody else? Yeah. Surface fabric covers, yeah.
Yeah, I had a friend ask me, he's like, I spilled wine on my Surface and it's stained. Is there a way to get the stain out? And it's like, no. You have a red Surface now. Yeah, plus, okay, so this is the exact laptop. Plus the, so the upper case is actually welded to the bottom case. There's no way to get the battery in this thing without prying it open or, cutting it open like a tin can. You completely destroy it in the process. This, so we give repairability scores from 1 to 10, how easy or hard it is to fix. This is how you get a 0 on that scorecard.
Yeah, this one, I think we were quoted, this is Microsoft's first stab at it, I think we were quoting it as a glue-filled monster. It was terrible. 0 out of 10, absolutely could not recommend this to anybody. What was interesting was that Microsoft actually took that feedback both from iFixit and from the negative consumer attention and press attention that they got, and they took that on as a challenge. And so they actually were able to achieve the largest generation over generation jump that our teardown engineers have ever seen. They improved the repairability from 0 out of 10 from the previous generation to 5 out of 10, which is a phenomenal jump on the manufacturing timeline.
And they did it without any externally visible changes. The weight, the industrial design was all identical. So the design team said, okay, we'll work on making it better, but we're going to do it all internally. And they did it with a variety of interesting approaches with obviously screws, but they also used magnets to align the top cover and hit the precision that they were aiming for.
They even commissioned a study on repairability, which actually yielded some pretty interesting insights. They found that repair is more sustainable than device replacement. Big shock. They found that design for repair improvements yield less waste. Big shock. And they found that the emissions associated went way down. So this is not only just helpful from a repairability standpoint, it was helping them meet some climate obligations that they had committed to. Anybody know what this is?
It's a butterfly switch. You know, a butterfly switch on a what? MacBook. Okay. This is, this is design hubris gone amok. And the fact that Apple stuck with this so long is just really a sign of, I think, how stubborn Johnny Ive is. Joanna Stern at the Wall Street Journal reached out to me, and she's like, hey, can you help us visualize this? I was like, yes, absolutely. And so we did all kinds of things. At one point, I mean, so the underlying problem, yeah. So this is the headline that we ran in the Wall Street Journal. It actually was interactive, so it had a toggle that would turn the R's and the T's on and off throughout the article, which was wonderful. And they're like, well, okay, so the problem is that dust gets in it. Well, beyond the problem that the butterfly mechanism was fragile, and if you got a single speck of dust in, it would render the key inoperable, the broader design problem with the laptop was that the key was attached to the keyboard. The keyboard was integrated into the uppercase assembly. The uppercase assembly had the speakers and the trackpad and the battery all glued to it. And so if you got a speck of dust in the wrong place, which is underneath any of the keys, half the computer was bricked. And Apple's replacement process, and they extended their repair program, and it's cost them hundreds of millions, was to replace half the computer. They took the whole uppercase assembly, including the battery. They took that off. You got a new battery when they were replacing your keyboard every time, which is crazy. And then they tried all kinds of silly approaches to try to fix it. They put gaskets around it, but the underlying keyboard mechanism was faulty. And by the way, it was obviously a failure of this magnitude. There's always a number of reasons underlying it. It was consistently the R and the T key, and that's because that's where the processor was, and that's where the most thermal cycling was on the. And so it was a combination of thermal cycling and wear, and no bueno. And it took them way too long to admit and fix it. Finally, they have, and the new design is quite a bit more repairable.
Yeah, I think, I'm sure that cost them billions of dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And visibility and just shame.
Yeah.
Just shame. Just sad. How proud are you if you design a laptop and then it's a speck of dust that takes you down? Similarly, so Samsung was pushing really hard with the Note 7. If you kind of rewind back to this moment in time, Samsung was desperate. They were pushing features as hard as they could, and so they pushed for the most battery capacity they could get in this notebook. They pushed the battery capacity a little too hard, and so the reason that these Note 7s were exploding was that the battery would swell a little bit and then pinch against the side of the frame that it was in and cause a thermal runaway. Okay, cool. If this had been like a Galaxy S5, this would have been the easiest thing for Samsung to fix in the whole world, right? They'd we'll take your batteries, we'll give you a new battery, right? If you recall the S5, the back popped off in its battery and you were good to go. The Note 7, the reason that this was a multi-billion-dollar public relations fiasco was because of the glue. And this is a trend. So Microsoft, do you have slides for the red ring of death? Okay, so the red ring of death, if we're talking Xbox, similar problem. Microsoft, a thermal expansion issue with the Xbox 360, cold solder joint crack failures. Okay, fine. You take it apart. Maybe you're going to replace that part, or you're going to reball the BGA. The problem was that the Xbox 360 is kind of a pain in the ass to take apart. It takes an hour to take it apart and put it back together, and so the magnitude of the mistake was multiplied by the difficulty of accessing the component. And I think these two cases, the Note 7 and the Xbox, are relevant because if most of the time it's the rest of us dealing with it's folks who are repair technicians, we're the ones who have to deal with it after the fact. These are cases where, because of a manufacturing defect, now the manufacturer has to repair them times millions, and they experience firsthand the repair problems that all of us experience every day.
And it was really ridiculous what they had to do to try to address this because of their design choices. If I recall correctly, they would send customers a box, tell them put it in the box and put it on your porch and don't do anything with it, because they couldn't even ship it back because of the fire hazard. And I think this is actually the moment that spurred when you order a battery, like if you order one from iFixit, we put a big kind of red flashing label on the back end that warns the carrier that there's a battery in here and it's a dangerous good. I think the Note 7 was the incident that really pushed the Department of Transportation to say, hey, we've got to impose some regulations here.
Yeah. Yeah, glued-in batteries do not make us happy, but of course it's the default across the board. And so now what's happening in recycling centers, all the gizmos that we put batteries in, the poor recyclers get them, if they're lucky. So a very common trend, I challenge, go home or go now look at the newspaper in your hometown and search for garbage fire. Garbage trucks are catching on fire around the world at an alarming rate. And the reason is they pick up the trash, they dump it in the trash truck has a compactor, and the battery in your smoke detector or whatever it was, and it doesn't need to be a large fire, right? It's a spark, and then it catches the cardboard on fire. And there was one in Morro Bay the other day. It's a very common thing. And every recycler that I know, I'll ask them, like, how often do you have fires? And they're like, what, do you mean every week or every other week? Something like that. It's very, very common for electronics recycling facilities to have fires. Yeah, it's sad.
So repair really touches on a lot of different areas, but we try to consolidate them into the 3 Ps: people, planet, profit. And just to briefly go through them, we all love our technology, but we can't function when it doesn't work. Manufacturing, safety in manufacturing is really critical here. And also, just as Kyle mentioned, end of life is just as important as designing it to be repairable in the first place. Actually, Bend just had a battery fire a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Perfect. Very common. I like to show people videos of recycling centers going up in flames and fireworks factories going up in flames, and ask them to tell me which is which. It's often challenging to distinguish.
And of course, there's just this general theme of like we're creating too much stuff. The planet is an important asset to protect. There's a major e-waste crisis. A lot of recycling facilities don't know what to do with this stuff. And in part, that starts with having so much glue in these devices. It's not as easy to disassemble as it should be.
Recycling is funded by the commodities. So if you think about a desktop PC, there's steel, there's a fairly heavy PCB. Desktop PC is generally profitable for them to recycle. Earbuds, AirPods, right? You buy a set of AirPods, it's got 3 batteries, 1 in each earpiece and 1 in the case. What's the raw commodity value of that? It's going to be under a penny, right, if you add everything up. So it's not worth anybody's time to take this apart. I was in a room about this size, full of electronics recyclers, and I said, how many of you would like to process wireless earbuds? And none of them are interested, right? Nobody wants these materials. You might as well take them in your backyard and bury them. There is no economic value in them. There's negative economic value because of the potential fire hazard.
Yeah. So moving on, just for the sake of time, I think when repair is done right, it can be a source of profit for manufacturers, and that's one that we've started to effectively get through. I think there's a lot of brand loyalty that comes with having a great experience with your product, and that experience also doesn't end at the point of purchase. It also happens when you drop your phone and the screen cracks, or after 2 years and your battery doesn't last all day, or you snap out the charging cable and now your charging port is broken. So repair is becoming a cornerstone for the environment and just the way that our economies are starting to function. Manufacturers, when they design for repair, need to really account for 3 different core repair scenarios. One is service centers and their own internal ASPs. So you can go to a Apple store today, and that would be an example of a quote-unquote service center or an ASP. You can also go to an Apple authorized store or a Samsung authorized store, and they will do the repair in coordination with the manufacturer using OEM parts. And then, of course, there's the independent side. So you can also go to a local repair store. I think in Bend, there's a guy who's got a shop called the iPhone Guy. His name's Justin, and he does repairs independently of the manufacturers using iFixit parts, and they're not official OEM parts, but they work just the same. And so manufacturers need to plan for that. And then, of course, DIYers. Anybody know why end user DIY consumer repair is important? Yeah. It's also the most complicated. It's the worst scenario to plan for, right? Because I've gone to engineering facilities for Samsung and sat in a facility in Dallas, and we were trying to prove to them in the early days of the Galaxy that that you could do repair independently. And their engineers were just not really accepting the fact that we couldn't achieve water ingress on reassembly. And so therefore, they didn't want to enable consumer repair at the time. And what it came down to is like, well, not everybody's doing repair in a clean room. Repair is sometimes in a messy environment, and you have to start from there, not in the perfect ideal scenario in your labs, and that should be kind of the baseline. So iFixit, we design kind of our whole ecosystem around the consumer, around the end user, and it's the most challenging part. And we try to do a really good job of making it foolproof. And as a result, we've empowered millions of people to fix their own stuff and to keep their devices lasting longer.
The design challenge that we have is how do we fix something complex like a smartphone with all the glue and everything, where the cost of the tool is included in the viable repair cost of the thing. So imagine you spent $600 on a thing, you break the screen. How much are you willing to spend to fix it? You know, I might be able to get you up to $200 total, right, for the parts and the tools. I got to push too much past that, and you're just going to say, I'll get a new one, which means we're looking at injection molded tools. We're not. Do you have a picture of the crazy Samsung tool?
Oh no, I deleted that. Yeah.
So the authorized service provider thing is these big expensive jigs. Apple after we passed the right to repair law, which said manufacturers have to make the same tools available to consumers that they use. Apple said, well, we'll ship you a 70-pound Pelican case with these crazy tools, 2 Pelican cases, yes. And so now every repair shop, so this is ridiculous for a consumer to have. This thing is expensive. But also, you have these single-purpose jigs for repairing a specific thing, which tends to happen when you use glue and you're trying to unglue it. Then all the repair shops have the detritus of the past collection. Every repair shop I know has like 20 of these jigs in the back room that they don't use anymore. So the e-waste just gets magnified. By the way, if you're new to glue, the reason why they have all these crazy jigs and we spend all this time on this is these are pressure-sensitive adhesives. So when you glue it down, you have to apply a certain amount of force for a period of time to glue it, and then when you're ungluing it, it's the same thing. Like heat and solvents like isopropyl alcohol help, but really it's pressure over time that is what releases the adhesive.
So we've been encouraging manufacturers to to design for repair within a repair ecosystem, to really think about the consumer experience. And this mirrors what you saw in the right to repair laws. It's access to documentation, access to parts, and access to tools if they're specialty, right? Does anybody in here have a Pixel phone?
Wow.
Pretty good.
We'll tell the Google people.
So as you saw,
their net market share is like 3%. So the fact that half this room has a Pixel is telling.
Pixel phones actually have a pretty great repair ecosystem. You can get access to the official service documentation. We work together with them to create more consumer-friendly repair documentation. And then, of course, access to the parts is pretty straightforward as well. By the way, if you've never replaced your Pixel phone, this is how thin that screen is. So be careful. But I think that gets us to product design. One of the most challenging aspects in this is designing for repairability, and it's one that's actually really ripe for innovation. Does anybody know what's wrong here?
So we call this a disassembly tree. This is the sequence of components. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, the battery is the thing you replace the most often, and you got to remove the fan, the storage, the motherboard, and then you get the battery. And this is a very common design sequence where you have these very deep disassembly trees.
Yeah. So for a lot of Pixel devices, you have to go through the back cover and then all the way down, take all these things out, and that would be a problem because they may not be broken. But in the process of doing the repair to get to your battery, you're probably going to break this. Kyle, would you touch your Pixel phone?
Yeah. it's scary opening them, yeah.
What's the problem on the back here, too?
Yeah, the back. So these OLED panels are really flimsy and fragile, so you've got the OLED, and then there's a glass baked onto the front of it, and then the back here. So if you touch this metal foil or even look at it sideways, it's very easy to damage the OLED underneath. So this is a very challenging part to handle. And we sell these repair kits, and every day we have someone that breaks the screen in the process of installing a new screen.
So ideally, the disassembly tree is really shallow. you shouldn't have to go through something like a display assembly to get to a battery. And so what we try to push manufacturers on is each of these components, which are probably, based on our data, the most likely to fail over time across their devices. We should really start with the back cover and then direct access to the battery.
We call a critical component, you identify the 3 or 4 things that are most likely to fail. And so if you look at our repair score and how do we calculate it, it really heavily biases the critical components, which on a cell phone really is the screen, the battery, and the charge port.
Yeah. We're about 5 minutes away till I think we're supposed to end, so I'm going to probably pause here. You all came with an agenda. We had a description on the website. Are there questions that Kyle or I can help answer that you have? I want to give you guys a chance to ask questions.
Let's do it. Yes, sir.
I'm just curious if you have any thoughts on the interplay between design for manufacture and design for repairability.
Yeah, so rework is a real thing, right? So every assembly line involves some amount of repair. I have been to assembly lines where you can smell them well before you get to them because of the amount of glue that is happening. And so when you do that, then you're going to have to unglue. So certainly it can be a factor. It's hard, when you're pricing something out up front, you don't ever plan on any amount of rework. But if you can find a way of pricing in how much rework is going to happen and then how invasive that process is, it always helps. But there are things that make manufacturing easier. Imagine like a toaster where the clamshell snaps on, right? Really easy and fast to assemble, very much a pain in the ass to fix. And so sometimes they're aligned, sometimes you have to do extra work to design for repair. Yes, sir.
Thanks for the talk. This sounds like a thing that's bigger than a corporation. Is there another way you organize to avoid legal issues or NGO, nonprofit?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you have internet? Do you want to pull up repair.org? Okay, so who's from Europe? We have any Europeans here? No one? Okay. There we go. We all one back there. All right, so we have coalitions all over the world. So repair.org is the U.S. Right to Repair Coalition. Would love to have you engaged and involved. We have one in Europe, repair.eu, very suspiciously named. In Canada, it's Can Repair. In Australia, it's Aus Repair. And each of these organizations is advocating for right to repair legislation. In that region, there are specific policies. Corey mentioned our huge victories in Canada last year where we passed both a right to repair and an interoperability copyright law. That's amazing. Canada is ahead of the U.S. now, and we're playing catch-up. We're trying to pass a national fix to Section 1201, the anti-tinkering portion of the DMCA here in the U.S. And then Australia is way behind. We're working on it. We got a great coalition, but they haven't achieved any legislative success so far. In Europe, we've had great success. And specifically, the battery in your smartphone is required under European law to be removable without heat or specialty tools starting next year. And so you're starting to see that. The iPhone now has this really interesting electrical release adhesive where you apply 9 volts across a couple contacts, and the adhesive magically releases, and there's no heat. It's really pretty fantastic. That adhesive was developed by 3M, but TISA and some other folks have similar adhesives that we're excited about and we're pushing manufacturers to do. So you will see, if you look at our teardowns, you'll see systematically every single major OEM release a easier to remove battery design this year. Not because they want to, but because we lobbied for it in Europe. And that started, it was like 10 years ago. I sat down with the European equivalent of the EPA and I showed them how to take apart an iPad and how to remove the battery from the iPad, and they were just aghast. They're like, this shall not stand. And then it took them 10 years to get around to banning it, and here we are. Yeah, but we got it done, so that's exciting. Yes, sir.
So in terms of knowing what gets replaced most often in consumer electronics, we have like 20 years of experience now with the benefit of hindsight to understand, like, yeah, the battery needs to be accessible, the motherboard needs to be accessible, the fan needs to be accessible. For newer categories of products like, I don't know, VR headsets, or for industrial electronics, from my personal experience, I'm asking this for a personal reason too, but we can talk about that later, that don't have batteries. How can you tell ahead of time, before users get their hands on products, what is most likely to fail? And basically, how can you inform right to repair, like not right to repair, designing for repair before you get your product out to users? Do you have any tips for that?
So this sounds hard. You're all smart people. I think you could, if I sell you your product, can you make it a little bit easier to repair? You probably got 3 ideas at the top of your head that you could do, right? Like, just do it. I can run a whole workshop on exactly how to design for repair. You're all smart. I think you can figure it out, right? Like, make the screws accessible. Don't make too many different kinds of screws. Don't use glue. Like, there's things. So, like yes, I do act. I run workshops. I have a whole team. We go and we train people on how to design repairable hardware. But it's also not that hard. If you can design a product that's easy to use, you can design a product that's easy to fix. What's going to fail, that comes down to your engineering discipline, right? And understanding the problem domain. You can figure that out. What's the MTBF and what are the wear components? And yeah, so just do it. Yes, sir.
So I'm from Washington State, and I read the recent proposed bills. But in every one of these right to repair bills at the state level, I see these weird carve-outs for things like off-road vehicles or medical devices, or are you doing anything to patch those holes?
Yes, so why are there so many loopholes? Because of the political reality, yeah. So you can pretty much look at which manufacturers are in which states and kind of predict the loopholes ahead of time. So like if we're going to pass a thing in Minnesota, Minnesota has Medtronic based locally. So I'm not going to pass a medical device right to repair bill in Minnesota. It just ain't going to happen. But I can do that here in Oregon. I mean, we don't really have medical device manufacturers here. And so it just totally depends. The Toy Association, so the biggest obstacle to fixing the anti-tinkering laws, the DMCA, is ESA, the Entertainment Software Association, which represents Nintendo and Sony and the game console manufacturers. They really do not want you to own your thing. And certainly the most tinkering hostile devices I think ever manufactured are game consoles, which is why we have an Illuminous hacker here who got to start doing that. So it comes down to political viability, where and when we can get it done. The goal, and so what we're doing is we're looking at the nation as a tapestry. And so let's say I can't get right to repair for medical devices done in Minnesota, but I can in Oregon. That's generally okay, right? So we tackle it where we can, and then we're trying to knit together a mesh that covers the whole country broadly. And generally companies, like once we passed the bill in New York, Apple and Samsung said, okay, we'll sell repair parts nationwide, right? And then nationwide is then becoming worldwide. And so we're chipping away at it where we can, and there's a political strategy involved in where and when we're doing it. The thing we're most excited about is the Texas bill, which just passed, which is not the strongest bill we've passed, but it was unanimous in a red state, and there's a lot of people that live in Texas, and very big deal. It's been very important to keep it bipartisan, so that we're not pigeonholed on one side or another. And no matter, like we've passed 5 bills in the last 2 weeks. And there's been a lot of other political changes in the U.S. over the last year, and we're still making progress. So that political strategy is important.
And I would say if you're in a state that has not passed a law yet, and even if you are and you see something that's not covered, go to your state name, oregon.repair.org, and submit a letter. And also on that page, you'll find resources to contact your representative and tell them how important this is to you.
So you use the word tinkering, and you obviously use the word repair a lot and fixing. I didn't hear you use the word modding at all. And I'm curious, is that kind of beyond the frontier of the wedge issue? Or is that included in your thoughts but unspoken? Or is it spoken somewhere else? Or yeah,
good question. It kind of depends on the context. We use language that resonates with lawmakers. Modding does not resonate with lawmakers. Repair does. So that's where you'll see like these slides are a lot of slides that we use directly with lawmakers. I think once you have the right to repair, once you can open it, once we ban parts pairing, it opens up a world more tinkering. Once you have access to their diagnostic software, right? Broadly, I would say it's a wedge issue. I am interested in areas where, where does the right to repair not go far enough and we need to go farther? But I think that broadly by saying, hey, any tinkering that the manufacturer is doing in their authorized service centers, we can do in the privacy of our own homes, that gets us a fair ways there. Yeah. It just totally depends. But I mean, broadly, we're making progress on that. I mean, this is John Deere's argument against the right to repair is, well, we don't want the farmers modifying their tractors. And it's like, have you ever been to a farm? Like, what tractor is unmodified? So yeah. One thing I would leave you with is now we have a patchwork of laws. So what these laws say is that the manufacturers have to make the same parts, tools, and information available to all of you that their authorized dealers have. Cool. Have any of you ever seen a Nintendo service manual? Nintendo is flagrantly in violation of the Oregon law, the New York law, all of these. The Nintendo Switch 2 just came out. Where are the parts for it? I have not seen them. So someone needs to do something about that, right? So that someone is going to be the attorneys general of these various states. But in order for them to take action, they have to have complaints from citizens that live in these states to say, hey, yeah, I was trying to fix my Philips espresso machine or whatever it is, and I can't get the parts, and I request them from the manufacturer, and they refuse to help me. So that is actively, that's what we're looking for right now, is we just need complaints. We need to know what the problems are. We need letters from individuals, people that live all over that say, hey, this is my thing. And we have a complaint collector. Yes, there you go, file a complaint. We have a button on repair.org, and you can put in your stuff and file complaints. This goes straight in. We are eagerly looking for complaints. The attorneys general are asking us specifically for what the problems are. We will funnel your requests directly to the lawyers whose job it is to go after these companies.
We've got a last question, and then we got to end it. But feel free to come up to us after and ask us questions. We're happy to stick around.
You talked about companies that are starting to do partnerships and make things better. I'm thinking like HMD did a certain phone. For them to, what are the things that they are looking for as an indicator to them, this is worthwhile, this is valuable? Because, for them to see an actual return on that, that's gonna have to be a long-term commitment, and companies these days really aren't good at that. Yeah, do you know what that is, or are there certain things that we can do to signal to them? I mean, is it worthwhile to write somebody and tell them, hey, I bought your stuff because of this reason, that kind of thing?
Yes, the louder and noisier and more vocal all of us are, the more of an impact it has. This may be a shock to you. Marketing departments are run by marketers. The marketers are not the tinkerers, right? Like, are there any marketers in this room? I didn't think so. We have one. Okay. It's fine. I'm kind of a marketer. But the thing is, right, like generally marketers are not fixers. And so this is just a total, it's really funny. iFixit, we've been reviewing and taking apart and doing teardowns of new tech products forever. Do you know how many PR pitches we get for new gizmos? Almost zero. The PR people don't understand iFixit. They don't understand the repair world. They don't have any idea that I've got 1 million followers on YouTube, and if I take apart and talk about their thing in a nice way, maybe they'll sell more. It's a foreign concept. So yes, the more vocal you are, just telling a company, hey, thank you, this was very helpful on Twitter, that helps to back it up. We have market research data in France. 4 in 5 consumers said they'd pick a more repairable product over their favorite brand. And so data like that starts to help, but we have to ask for it. We create legal change to make it possible. Then people need to take advantage of it. This really involves what we're trying to do is shift the culture in the direction it wasn't going. There's a lot of backfilling that has to happen to change behavior writ large. Generally, if your toilet breaks, we have a culture and an ecosystem where we get it fixed. There's local plumbers. There's Home Depot will sell you that part. That's not the case for tablets, right? If tablets break, people just pitch them and buy a new one. So there's a lot of backfilling we have to do across society. That's going to take cultural change. And just the law isn't good enough, right? We create the outrage. We're getting the laws passed. Now we have to actually alter our behavior. And with that, I'm going to leave it there. But Matt leads membership for repair.org. If you want to join the fight, he'd love to chat with you. And then we have lots more stories from the front line. We're going to continue this conversation about right to repair on Sunday with Bunny and Corey and myself. So we'll be in front of a microphone as well. But come talk to us in between now and then, and we will regale you with stories of things that the manufacturers have threatened to do if we could tinker with our own stuff. Thank you all very much.